So appreciate the chance to come and talk today about really an interesting topic. It's already been touched on and probably touched on quite a few times this morning, and that's liquefied natural gas export, of course. And Dominion has a unique role in it and quite a bit of history over the last several years to help get the policy where it is today, working in conjunction with some very key legislators. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the policy debate that took place in Washington that really kind of got us to a consensus. Believe it or not, in Washington, there's a consensus pretty much around this issue. And then I'll talk about the Dominion project out in Maryland and what that means all the way out here in Ohio. So just very quickly, this is the map of the Dominion footprint. Everybody here knows this as the gas company, of course, but if you don't know, we're headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. We own Virginia Power, which is the largest gas utility in Virginia. And we have nuclear, coal, wind, solar, gas-fired, hydro, biomass, you name it, about 20,000 megawatts of generation. We have an interstate pipeline company that you see the heavy lines there. It runs throughout the mid-Atlantic. That's out of West Virginia. And then I'll show you where the Cove Point LNG terminal is, right at that end of that line right there in the Chesapeake Bay, to give you a sense. So this is why, and this comes out of my computer from 2005. I tend to never delete anything from my computer, and sometimes it pays off. So this is a slide that I used when we were back in 2005 talking about the need to improve the siting process for liquefied natural gas import terminals. It was very clear to everyone at that time that the country was going to go down the path of importing more and more of our natural gas usage, and it was going to be like oil was at the time. Nobody was excited about that at all, believe me, but it was viewed as something we just had to do. So if you look at where that chart was today, around 2015, we would be up importing 15 billion cubic feet of gas per day. Maybe a fifth of what we'd be using by the time we get out to 2025. Nobody was excited about this, as I said. There was a mindset that this scarce resource we were running out of. There were fights over opening up some more areas drilling, but nobody thought we could ever be self-sufficient on natural gas. So after talking about this in Washington with policymakers, to then come back really just a couple years later and say, you know what, forget about what we said before. That doesn't work anymore. Now we want to export some. Understandably, there were some people that just looked at us and said, are you crazy? This is a precious resource that used to be talked about as, scotch that we would never want to give up. We got to hold on to it. But so it took quite a while to turn the corner from this mindset. I cannot overstate the role that Congressman Tim Ryan and Congressman Bill Johnson played in this very early on. And I'm not just saying that because he's here and he called me brilliant, okay? I would say it even if he wasn't here and called me something else. When this first discussion first started, the two of them organized a letter to the Secretary of Energy, and it was of Marcellus and Utica regional members of Congress, bipartisan, sending a letter saying, hey, we understand that there are some companies trying to get LNG export terminals sited and work through this permitting process, which hadn't really been utilized before. The wheels had slowed down. Nobody was sure whether this is something that was going to happen and was good. But they said, get busy on that. This is an opportunity for our region. They recognized back then that if the Utica especially was ever going to become what it could become, you needed a market for the gas. And what was so remarkable at that time was that it was two guys from Ohio, the new gas patch, not two guys from Texas. Had it been two Texans who wrote that letter, wow, dog bites man, who cares? But it really started a process, and before long there were letters of Texans and Oklahomans, and there were the regional letters, and suddenly it became 150 members of Congress from both parties had said, hey, here's an opportunity. Let's sell this overseas, and in the meantime, put people to work here. It might be odd for someone from Ohio, which is so dependent upon selling goods around the world, that anyone would ever question it. But absolutely they did. If someone came and said we should stop exporting vehicles made in the U.S. Because it will keep the price down for domestic auto buyers, I think you'd laugh them out of the room, because automakers would simply make fewer cars to meet market demand. So the idea that we're going to dramatically raise prices because we sell some of a product overseas, absolutely not the case. But that was the debate that we had to fight our way through. So this map shows you where the shale gas is in the world and why it is and was at that time fairly urgent that we jump out and capture a market. The U.S. doesn't have the most natural gas, doesn't have the most shale gas, but what it does have, it has a great head start in terms of capability of companies, infrastructure of pipeline and processing, a legal system that can work through and handle contracts with landowners who own mineral rights. Many countries of the world, they don't own their own mineral rights. A financial system that could match capital with promising prospects. All of those things came together, and believe it or not, a fairly predictable political process. It may not seem that way, but compared to other parts of the world, our political process looks pretty good in terms of permitting. So put all that together, and the U.S. had this great advantage to jump out and grab a chunk of market against these competitors who will crack the code eventually on producing their own shale. Many countries are trying, but it's not simply a matter of taking our technology and going there. There are unique things about different plays, and of course the processing and pipelines and all the other infrastructure. So it was important that we jump out and get busy on this, and that's why many pushed so hard. So there was a debate over a couple of years. Fortunately, the law was already in place. There was a process to go through and seek permission to export. That doesn't mean that some tried to undo it. There were amendments offered on the House floor by Congressman at that time, Ed Markey from Massachusetts. He tried on 3, maybe 4 occasions to ban the export of gas. Every time he offered that, he got beat, and every time he got beat by a bigger number. So that the trend was excellent at the time, and the law stayed as is, and the Department of Energy and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the 2 agencies that have responsibility for permitting, they let it go forward. So really the arguments that won the day would be some of these. The price advantage for U.S. consumers remains. That was the first thing I mentioned. There was concern that why would we give up? We have this cheap gas. Why would we let others around the world take advantage of it? Here's the key. If gas is $2.50 today in the U.S., or it's $3, whatever it's bumping up and down, by the time you take that gas, get it over to Cove Point, which is our LNG terminal in Maryland, you're going to pay us about $3 roughly to take it and liquefy it. And to liquefy gas, you drop it to 260 degrees below zero. It shrinks from 600 units down to 1, and load it on a ship and take it overseas and warm it up. That's the basics. It sounds simple, but it's pretty expensive to do. So, but you're going to pay us about $3 for that. To get it to Japan or Asia, you're going to pay about another $3, and then you have to warm it up on the other end. So maybe add $6, $7 to whatever the price is here. That's what someone's going to pay for it overseas. So your competitor in Japan or India, $3 gas here is going to end up costing them, $9 or $10. That won't change. No one's going to come along and find a really cheap way to transport natural gas. Oil can be moved around the world very inexpensively compared to what it takes to transport natural gas. Tens of thousands of short-term and long-term jobs, that's obvious. To build these massive facilities, it takes thousands of workers. And then in the long term, the jobs that will be supported in the producing industry, the processing, and others to support the amount of volume that will be sent overseas, that's pretty clear. Billions of dollars for federal, state, and local coffers. Every level of government always is looking for more revenue, of course. In our case, and if there are any county officials or people that are closely involved with your county finances here, Calvert County, Maryland, we will pay an additional $40 million per year in property tax once our terminal is up and running, based on its $4 billion value and the money that'll be moving through there. Advances U.S. geopolitical interests. Congressman Ryan touched on that. It was several years ago that the Europeans, when they're constantly getting tweaked or worse by the Russians and Gazprom, and Gazprom is a tool of the Russian government, essentially, they became more and more uneasy with being dependent upon Russia for gas. And it became clear that the U.S., their ally and friend, was on the verge of being able to sell some gas around the world. Lithuania just opened up a new LNG import terminal, And they are very excited about buying some gas from the U.S. so that they can inject into the pipeline system there and reach a number of countries in Central and Eastern Europe, and gives them some great bargaining power and leverage against what had been really their only supplier, and that was Gazprom. So the U.S., I mean, once Ukraine happened, a whole bunch of policymakers and opinion leaders looked at this LNG thing in a new light, and that's through the political aspect. And of course, it helps avoid the boom and bust cycle that we're experiencing right now. It has always been the case through time that when prices rise, the drill bit chases it, and before long you're oversubscribed and oversupplied, and then the price craters, and it takes years for that to work out. To be able to have some sponges on the coasts that will take up surplus supply can really help even that out. It makes it more predictable for everyone, and that's just very clear. And of course, it reduces the U.S. trade deficit. That's been a goal today, and it's been a goal for decades, of course. And it bolsters the manufacturing renaissance. The amount of equipment that goes into these plants is just tremendous, and it's sourced from all over the country, whether it's big power turbines and condensers and chillers. A lot of companies and states get in on the action to build these terminals, which in our case is $4 billion, and ours is fairly small. Down in the Gulf, the big ones are 10, 12 billion, and a lot of that is equipment, and a lot of that comes from the U.S. And then it assures the production of gas liquids for the petrochemical industry. You tend to not export the liquids, you strip off the liquids, certainly out here where the gas is wetter. So if you get a cracker or two in place, you want the drill bit to keep turning, take the methane and put it in the pipe and send it to Maryland, and you have all the liquids for the domestic spin-offs from that. And at the end of the day, I've used this one for years. If you really still aren't quite convinced, think of this guy. He's a Tokyo Gas customer, and he's paying his bill. And I say Tokyo Gas because half of the output of our terminal in Maryland will go to Japan and end up at Tokyo Gas. So he's paying his bill, and some of that money ultimately finds its way into the pocket of U.S. workers. Just in your simplest terms, you know, who can be against that? And then at the time of the debate, here's another interesting one. Anytime the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal editorial pages all agree on something, you're on to something. And that is just, it was remarkable. But it happened on LNG exports. And then here's just a partial list of some of the outside interests that became involved in this. The whole spectrum, and I won't list all of them, but U.S. Chamber of Commerce, surprise, surprise, but the Laborers International Union, they were strong allies, the National Taxpayers Union, these foreign policy groups, American Security Project, the Council on Foreign Relations, these are groups you've heard of that each came to it for their own reasons and said, hey, this is a winner for the U.S., let's get busy on this and overcome the opposition and the newness of the issue and just get it done. And they did. So that was sort of the nature of the policy debate. It took a while to fight our way through it and turn the ship around, no pun intended, but we got there, and now a number of projects have been approved. Ours was one of the first ones. Dominion was one of the early movers because we owned this terminal, which was built as an import terminal back in the late 70s. It only operated for several years between that time and 2000 when Dominion bought it because the market had shifted back and forth in the U.S. So we bought it in 2000, reactivated it, started importing cargoes of LNG, a lot of from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. And then everything changed, and we saw the opportunity to, hey, let's add the ability to liquefy and export. We're the only terminal that has such a direct pipe over to the Marcellus and the Utica, of course. So we jumped on it, we got in line, went out and marketed the capacity, signed long-term contracts, 20-year contracts with two customers, one Sumitomo of Japan, which then offloads to Tokyo Gas and Kansai Electric, and the other half to GAIL of India, a very large national natural gas company. So for the next 20 years, those companies will each take half of the output from the project. We don't buy and sell them the gas. They go make arrangements for it, and they've each made arrangements with producers, one with Cabot Oil and Gas, Sumitomo did, and then WGL Energy Services, they're the supplier for GAIL. They go out and procure the gas get it over to our terminal in Maryland. We'll liquefy it, load it on their ships, and off it will go. They just pay us to do that part. We don't buy and sell the gas, so we don't have any of the risk. It's like an annuity for the next 20 years. It's pretty great. About 750 million cubic feet of gas per day is what our capability is to take and liquefy and load onto a ship. What the picture you're looking at there, that pier sits about a mile out into the Chesapeake Bay. That's where the ships come, and it used to be unload, but now soon they will come and they will load and they will head overseas. This is a timeline of our project. I won't list all of these, but it will give you a sense of what it took to get through that. We first announced in January of 2011 that we were exploring the potential to add export capability and to go see if we could find some customers around the world. And we did, and month by month, year by year, until September of 2014, we worked our way through the permitting process. And I'll tell you that in Maryland, we had quite a scrap with the Sierra Club and a couple other environmental groups during the FERC process, and FERC is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. 250,000 negative comments were organized and filed from environmental groups that were opposing this. They really thought if they could get the Cove Point terminal, and it was a lot about fracking. You stop Cove Point and you stop fracking in the same way that if you stop Keystone, you stop the oil sands in Canada. Same theory. We had some great allies in the building and construction trades and others, and we ultimately won, but it was a fight that involved a protest down on the National Mall and a march over to the FERC and blocking the entrance at the FERC. It was quite a deal, but that's just the nature of the business today, and certainly in certain parts of the country, and not so much out here. So we began construction in October of 2014, and if all goes well, we will be commencing operations in late 2017. It's a big construction project. It's about $4 billion, so you don't do that overnight. This is what it looks like right now. I was there a couple weeks ago. It is a massive construction site. We are now at, I think, 1,160 workers there, and we'll peak at 1,300 or 1,400, a lot of building trades. And just for a sense of perspective, they told me that we'll soon have 52 cranes out there, lifting and building. That gives you a sense of just what's involved. It has a tremendous impact on that region of the country, the workforce, of course. It's the biggest, we think it's the biggest private capital project in Maryland in decades. Just another picture, and this is the chart of the workers showing that we'll peak in 16 next year. And as I mentioned, we did a project labor agreement on this, so the building and construction trade guys are very happy. And once we're completed, that's what it will look like. All the stuff you see here is the new equipment. This is what it takes to take the gas and liquefy it, and then we'll put it out on the ships that will arrive there. And every 4 or 5 days for the next 20 years, we should have a ship like that pull up, and we'll load it, and it will go overseas, and they'll send us foreign currency back here, and we'll put it back into the economy across the region in the U.S. really. In terms of the potential for other projects, this is a list that will show you, and a map that will show you the projects that have been approved and are so far under construction, as well on the bottom, those that are approved that are not under construction. So you can see Cove Point there, Cheniere project down in Louisiana. That was the first one in line. They should begin making LNG later this year. I think there are 4 under construction now, maybe 5. There are about 40 in the queue. No one believes there will be 40 done. The early movers got the early contracts. The Globe cannot, and this next one is this is a total list of additional projects on top of the first map. Those are the other applications or proposals or gleam in the eye that have been talked about. The world can't absorb this much U.S.-made LNG, but certainly there's going to be a half dozen, maybe more. There are people smarter than me that will know what the long-term potential is there, but the U.S. has a great opportunity to capture a bit of this market, and it will mean good things for us for a long time to come. So that's really the story of the debate and the Cove Point project. And I think you mentioned if people have any questions, we'd be happy to talk about that as well.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Thank you. My first question is, where are you in line on the completion of projects? You said that there are probably 6 in all that will, in practicality, be built. Who will come online before you, even though you're not competing against them?
Yeah, it might be more than 6. I don't want to say that I know. But really the early tranche where the companies that got in early, got approved early, went out and captured the early contracts with Japan that had shut down all its nuclear plants, and they were real eager to lock up gas. If Cheniere is up and running this calendar year, I believe that Sempra has a project in Louisiana that will start to come online before us, I think in 16, partially. It's a real big one. And I think we're probably about the 3rd one that will come online with operation.
Is it impractical to think that a project would be commenced of this size without guaranteed contracts, without guaranteed customers? Is anybody building anything like this on spec?
No. The only one that will be built somewhat like that is Exxon Mobil and Qatar Gas. They have a joint partnership to build a terminal down in Louisiana, in Texas. They don't have customers per se, but they have a global portfolio of LNG, and they have places where they just always need to take some. I think a lot of it will go to Britain. So maybe, I don't call that spec because they know they have the wherewithal and they know where it's going to go. But to just build one of these and then go marketing, no, you're not going to get financing for that.
Right. Do you imagine that after 20 years you'll have renewal or new customers? Does this investment pay off in 20 years?
You know, nobody saw the current arrangement, or the current situation 5-6 years ago. Who can predict 20 years? It could be 5 years from now that that our customers, for some reason or another, don't have an immediate need. The markets could shift dramatically. The good news for us is we get paid either way. We're paid a capacity charge to be ready. It's take or pay. But certainly it looks now like the demand for gas is going to only grow around the world, and few can compete with us price-wise.
Questions in the room? Yes, sir.
What's the potential of growth in that port from your perspective?
Right. Unfortunately, we're hemmed in space-wise. We have over 1,000 acres of land out there, and we use about 130 acres of it inside the fence, as we call it. The rest of that land is operated and maintained under an agreement with the Sierra Club, which was signed long, long ago. Need I say more?
So it won't be anything other than natural land.
Maybe a change of heart on their part if the demand and the need arrive.